Okay.
And this says that we're live.
Sweet.
Yeah. We are live with Sophia Trinh, Seattle artist. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Sophia.
Hey.
Mom, I'll get your piece of Okay, get my piece of paper.
So we're just waiting.
Yes.
I see that we've got
Thank you.
18 people logged in on YouTube, I think. But we should be streaming live to Facebook as well. And thank you, everyone, for joining another week of virtual marine biology field camp with Oceans Initiative. As many of you know, when the strong germ days hit and our daughter's school was closed, Erin and I, Erin is here,
Hi.
who are parents, we're not teachers, we decided that we would launch a marine biology field camp to keep our daughter entertained and to give parents a break, 2 hours a week. And this week, we are so lucky to have our friend and supporter, Seattle artist Sophia Trinh, joining us. Hi, Sophia.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much. And to those of you who are just joining, Sophia has been so generous in her support over the years. She has donated some beautiful Orca stickers, which, by the way,
it's on my laptop, so I'm inspired every day.
Every day, this is our inspiration.
Get there.
And if you look in the banner, you can see a link to Sophia's website, and I think you can still buy these stickers.
Yep.
Right? So today, Sophia, why don't you tell us what we're planning to do?
Yeah, sure. So today I want to focus on, I really love whales and dolphins and any sea creatures, and I think watercolors is a great medium for that. But like Rob was saying, if you don't have watercolors, you can always just use a pen to fill it in. What's nice about the Orca whale is that you can use 2 colors, right? You can use white space. So you don't need white paint for it, but you can really just use your paper if you have white paper, and then a black pen or black paint. But you can really paint your whales in any colors. You don't have to just paint it black. I've done Orca whales that are purple and pink. So it's a lot of fun, and you can use your imagination. If you want to paint an Orca whale that's rainbow, you can do that too. About art. But yeah, I'll just go through it and just follow along. I'll try to make it as simple as I can.
Sorry, we're having something just fell.
My desk fell.
Here, I can help.
Oh no, that can happen sometimes too.
Yeah.
And especially since my desk is bigger than the chair it's sitting on.
It's not. Okay. Yeah. We're making it.
We all have to be flexible.
We're gonna figure it out.
Okay. So, to those of you who are watching at home, I am going to try to keep up with the comments. What I'll do is I will pass the screen over to Sophia. So we're still going to be here. We'll keep our microphone on, but we'll turn off our video so that Sophia can rotate and point to the paper that she's painting on, and she'll have the full screen.
Awesome.
And I will do that too.
All right.
And make sure I have my tripod right here. And Rob, let me know what it looks like if I need to adjust.
Cool. There's Sophia's workstation. Yeah. She has a special tripod camera set up at her artist studio.
Yeah. How does that look? Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Okay.
Sweet. So before I begin, I want to announce the winner. Thank you all so much for donating to the Oceans Initiative. It's been wonderful to work with my friends there because I've always just enjoyed being by the water, living in the Pacific Northwest. I haven't seen a whale myself, but I've seen porpoises, when I go to Whidbey, and I spend a lot of time in Langley actually, and a lot of my art, I spend a lot of time painting there because most of my artwork is based off of nature, and it's very nature themed. But I wanted to thank you all for donating and supporting nonprofit organizations like the Ocean Initiative. I think it's really important to take research and put it into policy and use it to advocate for our animals, and especially in this time where nonprofit organizations might not get the same love that that they should. But here's the right whale that I created. It's an original, and the winner is Caroline Boudis. I might not be pronouncing your last name right, but I know that you have a daughter named Bridget, and you're from North Carolina. So congrats, and thank you so much for your donation. I will collect the information from Rob afterwards, and I can send you the right whale.
Perfect. So Sophia,
that,
before you start, there are some comments coming in saying that your screen is sideways. Is it possible to rotate it 90 degrees?
Let me see. I might be able to. I just have to move some things around. So the thing is, you won't be able to see the whole. Maybe if I do it this way. Is that better? Is that still?
Yeah.
So I'm hearing some people on YouTube and Facebook saying, yes, it looks better.
Okay. Okay.
Am I getting some
a little tricky.
flippers up?
All right. Well, the first, all right, well, we'll begin. And usually I really like white space. A lot of my artwork deals with a lot of white space because I like to draw the viewer's attention just to the image itself. But of course, as you're creating, you can put the whale in water, or create a world of your own. So the first thing I usually do is I measure out my paper. This is 9 by 12. And so I'll take a ruler and I'll divide my paper in half.
And Clara, so we don't have a ruler here, but I bet you can kind of, if you don't have a ruler, you can probably estimate, right?
Yep, you can definitely eyeball.
How many inches?
Okay.
Exactly.
You can use your hands and decide how many inches it is.
Okay.
You can definitely eyeball it.
Okay.
And what is your equipment list here? What else should people have at the ready?
I would say an eraser, if you have an eraser. Just paper, a pencil, a black pen if you want to add more detail, but I probably won't use my black pen today. And then I use for the Orca, I only use one color, which is black.
Oh, cool.
It's the absence of color. I didn't know that, but my friend who's a physicist told me that. And so this is really all you need. But you can also, if you don't have a paintbrush at home, you can just use a black pen too to fill the black areas. I got this at the Langley Whale Center, so I will be using my North Pacific Coast picture of a whale.
Great.
To actually draw it out. But you could also use your imagination. So that's the fun thing about art, is that you really can use your imagination. I already started my sketch, but I'm going to give folks some time just to, when I'm starting a whale, what I like to do is I like to draw a line on my paper, because that will give me, in terms of proportion, where the tail needs to go, where the fins need to go, and then where the eye goes. And then I learned this the other day, Rob. Maybe you can confirm this. I learned that the Orca whale is not it sleeps with half of its brain awake and then half of it's bringing asleep. So it sleeps with one eye open.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, I've been muting my mic so that you don't hear us
chit-chatting about getting our supplies together.
But you're right.
I'll give everyone a few minutes to get their supplies together.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In humans, breathing is automatic. It's part of the automatic nervous system. But in most marine mammals, it's the part of the brain has to be active to remind it to surface to breathe. Otherwise, it would be breathing underwater and could drown. And so their sleep is not the deep sleep that we get. It's more of like a cat nap.
Yeah. I thought that was super fascinating because I could never imagine, even though whales are mammals, or I guess the orca whale is, even though it's called a whale, it's actually classified in the dolphin family.
The world's biggest dolphin, that's right.
The world's biggest dolphin, that's right.
Yeah.
And so I always, sometimes the most challenging part for me is actually drawing a dolphin's head, because it has a little, almost a bump, and then it flattens out.
That's right. We've been talking about the melon, which is that it looks like half a grapefruit on the front of the head of the whale or the dolphin. And that helps focus the echolocation, focus the sound. There are a number of people commenting that they can just barely see the pencil. And I just want to reassure them that we're early on. We're just starting.
We're just starting. That's right.
So you started with a line?
I did. I started a line on my paper because it gives me almost like a destination point of where the eyeball needs to go. Yep.
Cool.
Do you want to do that, Clara? Do you need help?
Yeah.
The line?
I can't really figure out how to draw.
And if you wanted to, you could use a black pen.
Yep. Absolutely. If you don't have a pencil, you can use a black pen.
Okay. So for people who are just starting at home, they've done the line. Should they have finished the whole outline of the whale, or are you going to walk us through that step by step?
I'll walk it through step by step, but if you want to go ahead and start, you can.
Cool.
I want to just make sure too that for art, it's not always a step by step, and I feel like if your kid, if you're just inspired to draw the orca whale as you like, go ahead and do that. Cool. I don't want it to be very prescriptive.
Cool.
Yes, just because that's the fun thing about art too, Rob. I think that there is no right or wrong way, to paint something. And that's what I always encourage my students to think about too. As long as you're having fun, I think that's the most important, is you're having fun and you're willing to try. Cool.
So I think people are loving seeing the line that you're using as a guide. And if occasionally we can bring that closer to the camera so people can see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people are just looking for a little more guidance.
Okay. That's always
I know people that in that group for that category.
I'd be lucky if I could do paint by numbers.
Yeah, it's always nice because I teach adults, and it's always nice to get feedback, because sometimes I always tell my students the best way to learn is actually by doing.
Okay.
And so sometimes I try to let my students discover that themselves, but it's also nice to get feedback where more guidance is needed.
Cool. And so where did you place the eye on that line?
I placed it right above the eye, or the line, just right a little above it.
Okay.
Because what I will do is I will go in a little bit and draw almost like a curve.
Okay.
Towards, do you call this I call it the whale's arm, but there's probably a scientific term for it that you can educate me on.
It's called a pectoral fin, or a flipper.
A pectoral fin. The flipper.
But you're absolutely right to call it the arm because it has exactly the same bones that we have in our arms.
Yeah.
The
Good to
the
know.
long parts are on the inside. The long part of the flipper is actually the 5 bones of our fingers, just really stretched out.
Okay. And I think that's another fascinating thing about whales that I love so much, and porpoises, is just they're mammals. And so humans are also mammals.
Yeah.
So we share a lot of communication in terms of singing. And I thought that was really fascinating when I was learning about whales and porpoises.
And just so you know, the tail fluke is how they propel themselves through the water. They move that up and down to generate the forward thrust. And then they use those pectoral flippers to steer a little bit. And so in the adult males, those pectoral fins can become very, very large, and that allows them to really just turn on a dime. They're really, really agile.
Also kind of, I mean, not only the pectoral flippers, but the size of the male killer whales also means they don't go as close to shore in some cases. Like you can't get into the same little pockets that smaller.
Yeah. And Alicia is asking, can the flipper bend like how we move their fingers individually? Great question. They can in sea lions, but not in killer whales. In killer whales, that's one big appendage. So they're all bound together in the flipper. Whereas a sea lion could scratch themselves with one, effectively the flipper equivalent of a finger. All right, so everyone is glued to your sketch.
Okay.
I'm going to mute our microphone again so you can go back to your drawing.
Okay, great. No, that was really, I love learning more. Like every single time I can learn something new about animals and just marine wildlife, I'm fascinated. So thank you for that. Okay, so why the line is that it's easy to draw almost a curve towards the flipper, right? Or the arm of the whale. And so you can really use your line and draw almost the eyeball right there, because it will hover right above that line. And then you can almost use that line to guide you to draw the rest of the whale's body. You can curve up. And then almost there's a curve, and then I'm going to draw its tail. As Rob just talked about, how our friends can propel themselves. And then once you're done, you can, if you have an eraser, you can erase your line because you won't need that anymore. But I'm going to go ahead and, because I want to make sure that my whale has a divide between the white areas of its body and then the darker black areas. So I'm almost going to do a little curve right there.
Okay.
And Sophia,
Yeah.
in our first couple of episodes of this camp, we talked about that line between the black top and the white belly, which is called countershading. And we see it in salmon, we see it in penguins and killer whales. And if you imagine you're a salmon swimming over a killer whale, if you're looking down from above, the black back blends in with the dark ocean. And if you're a salmon swimming under, maybe a harbor seal is a better example. If you're swimming under a killer whale, you look up at the white belly that blends in with the bright sunlit sky. So it's a great form of camouflage, and that's why we see black backs and white bellies on so many dolphins, orcas, penguins, sharks, and countershading is a common strategy that lots and lots of marine animals use to catch prey and avoid predators.
That is so cool. And I think that's so much fun. Like when I was learning biology, everything in nature, I think, has its purpose. And it's so neat to see when it comes to the pigments that are found in certain species and how they're able to use that to their advantage in terms of catching prey.
Yeah. And
Very
others.
cool. Thank you. Countershading.
Yeah.
Countershading.
And even though light doesn't transmit very well underwater, some of these white patches, like the white belly or the white eye patch behind the eye, which we haven't got to yet, or even the saddle patch, those are visible for maybe a few meters underwater. And so in extremely social units like killer whale pods or matrilines, they can use those little flashes of light, of white, to coordinate their group movements when they're working together to hunt prey.
Wow.
So those flashes of white can help with group cohesion, and they may also help startle their prey. So even though vision, most of their hunting is done through sound, those little flashes of white can play a role in coordinating group movements and hunting.
Wow, that's so fascinating. I didn't know that. I'm going to add that to my knowledge of whales, which I am trying to learn more about. I bought this book when I was in Langley at the Whale Center in Langley, Washington, on Whidbey Island, and this is another artist that I really admire. And she just goes through all the scientific names and all the different tails too that you can identify in the water.
I have that book too.
It's a great book. It's a really fun book, and I always enjoy reading more and more about whales. So Rob, you were talking about the white spot where it's close to the eye. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there a does that help deflect light? Is that, can you tell us a little more about that?
Sorry, I was on mute there, and I just spilled my coffee. That's all right.
You can also paint with coffee, by the way. That's another.
Oh, really?
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think someone in the 80s did a study and found that each orca in the resident killer whale population, it has a unique eye patch.
Yeah.
So you can tell them apart like a fingerprint.
Wow.
Now that's not terribly practically useful because the whale has to spy hop for us to be able to see it. But whereas they just have to surface to breathe for us to see their fin or their saddle patch. But I think that white eye patch can serve as a signal to a female that a potential mate is big and healthy. It helps to coordinate group movement because you can see that flash of light of white when you're working together as a group to hunt. So I'm sure it helps with group coordination.
Yeah.
And at the level of the population, we can tell in the extreme examples in the Antarctic where you have several ecotypes or different, they're almost subspecies and they may eventually be called different species. The size and the shape and the angle of the eye patch can vary quite a lot from resident fish-eating types to mammal-eating transient or bigs ecotypes, or down in the Antarctic where we have types A, B, C, and D. And some of them are really tiny. Some of them are sloped on a 45-degree angle. So I don't know that there's necessarily a function to that, or if it just represents the fact that they split into different groups tens of thousands of years ago.
That's fascinating. Wow. I'm
So-
learning so much. Thank you.
So to
Yeah.
everyone who's trying to draw their eye patch, if
Yeah.
you get it wrong, you can just say to anyone who's asking, oh, that's fine. That's not, I wasn't trying to draw a resident eye patch. I was trying to draw an Antarctic type D killer whale eye patch. And no one will ever know, really.
I am definitely going to use that.
Yeah, just say it's a different ecotype. You wouldn't know it. It's only Orca experts know that.
That's fascinating. And that's, I think, a lot of the times too, it's a lot of fun when you're painting, because every single painting that I've painted has been different. There's no watercolor that's been exactly the same. And so that's always good to keep in mind too, is that nothing will, ever look the same. That's really fun for me, I think, when I'm painting a right whale or a blue whale, that every single time I paint a new one, there's something different about it.
That's cool. And just reading through the comments, people want clarification that the white eye patch is not the eye. That's just to
right.
remind people, that's just a flash of white. But the eye, I see where you've drawn it.
Yep. Which is not exactly the same right here, as this illustration of the orca whale. You can see they almost drew the patch right next to the eyeball.
Yeah. But I see why you draw that line first, because the eye is right at the jawline. And
right.
And to people who have been asking, although orcas use sound to hunt and to coordinate their movements, they still do have reasonably good vision. And so that's why when they spy hop, they are able to, they're able to see around them. It's just that light doesn't penetrate very far into the ocean. So vision is not a terribly useful sense underwater. It's not as practical as sound is. But the eyeball's still there.
That's fascinating. That makes complete sense, because sound travels through water
Efficiently and quickly. Yeah.
Sight isn't. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little close up, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I did my little eyeball there, and a lot of times my friends say that my whales are always smiling. And I think it's partly because they bring me so much joy.
I love that.
Created though right whales are a little grumpy looking, if you look. So one of my friends, he's a little grumpy sometimes, and I always mention, I say, you kind of look like a right whale right now.
I love that. And I think Bridget in Cary, North Carolina is very lucky, and I particularly love the gold flashes on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of fun, and I love artwork that you can feel and touch too. And so for this right whale, I added gold acrylic to it.
Cool. I love it.
I'm gonna start on I'll talk a little bit about watercolors first.
Okay.
And why
I'll
I
mute
love
myself
it so
again.
much. Yeah, but you can focus on your sketch, and again, if you don't have watercolors, you can always use a black pen to fill in the black areas of your orca whale. And sometimes I forget which areas are white and which areas are dark. So what you can do is you can almost put a W for the areas that are white, and then a B, just like a very light sketch if you can't remember of that the colors to use. But I'm going to go ahead and erase that for myself, since I have a picture right in front of me, and I'm going to use that as a reference photo. But usually most of my artwork begins with a sketch, and sometimes I'll go through a few drafts before I paint over it. In this case, I really like how the draft turned out, so I'm going to go ahead and start adding watercolors to it. And a trick that I always teach my students about watercolors is that the pigment, the paint, will only go where the water goes. And so if you don't place water on the places on the paper that you don't want the paint to go, it shouldn't go there. And I'll illustrate that in just a second. So let's see. Okay. So the technique of watercolors that I use, it's called wet on wet. And that is where I will wet my paper first. And that is what I'm going to do. And I want to remember that to leave white space, just add water around the eye patch of my Orca. Because again, that's white and it's not going to be filled in with my black watercolor ink. And again, so right now I'm adding water to it, and you can see it because it's a little shiny. And so I am not going to add water outside of this line because I don't want my ink to travel there. So I am going just to add water where I want the paint to go. That's what I'm going to do right now. And I'm not going to hold my paint up or my paper up because it's a little challenging. I'm going to do that, and then I'll return to the screen. But right now I'm just using water. I don't actually have paint on my paintbrush to fill in the Orca's body. And again, if you don't have paint, you can just fill it in with a pencil or a black pen or any color you want. I've also painted purple whales as well. And so again, I am avoiding the area where the eye patch is, and I'm going to very gently add water to the eye. But I don't want to add water to completely wash out the eyeball, because I want to make sure that there is some that the ink, the black ink that I'll be using, doesn't cover the entire eye.
That is so cool. And we have a comment from Kirsten who's wanting to know, do you block out anything in particular for the mustache behind the saddle patch, or behind the dorsal fin, which we call a saddle patch? Do you have to treat that in a special way? Because it's not really blocked out as white, and it's not really black. It's kind of...
Is that this right here?
Yeah.
You know, I don't, but you absolutely can. That's called the saddle patch. Is that right?
Yeah. And that's one of the ways that we tell the individuals apart.
Yep.
And it's kind of gray. And it starts out really faint when they're babies. And then as they mature, it becomes much whiter and much more distinctive.
That's always good to know. You know what I'm going to do is I am going to use, if you're using watercolors, if you're drawing it, go ahead and leave some area, like white area for that. So you can go over it, you know, almost, it looks like it's almost like a wave.
Yeah. So if you were stippling this with a pencil, you could just maybe not stipple it as densely.
Exactly.
So it's a bit gray. And if you're watercolor.
Yeah, I can illustrate it right here too. Here, I'll quickly sketch. What you can do is just take your pencil and almost do a wave movement, and just keep that area.
Cool. Do you see that, Leslie, who was asking about the saddle patch, and others? Isn't that cool? And again, for those of us who we're not trying to, we're trying to protect populations. Each population tends to have different saddle patches. That's one of the ways we can tell the mammal eating and the fish eating and the offshore ones apart. And in the southern resident killer whales that we're really trying to protect, the critically endangered southern residents, you often have an open saddle patch. So that line of black that runs through the top of the saddle patch and kind of splits it in two, that's called an open saddle patch. And that's very common in the southern resident killer whales, whereas we never see it in the transient mammal-eating Biggs killer whales. And I don't think there's any function behind that. I think it's just a genetic quirk. Like some communities have more blonde hair or brown hair or black hair. Cool.
Thank you for that. See, I'm always learning new things to perfect my paintings later on. So yeah, the first I think the first orca whale that I painted, I didn't even notice that. So that's really great that you pointed that out.
And to Tioni and others who are saying, "Oh, I've already painted in my saddle patch," don't worry about it.
Yeah, no worries.
Don't worry about it. Yep, don't worry about it. And I forgot to tell folks, but if you are painting, if you have just a paper towel or a rag, I'll show you a little trick later on of how you can create that saddle. It's saddle patch, right?
That's right.
To almost take away the ink using your paper towel. But that's great. It's always great. I love learning new things about any sort of animal. So thank you for that. And again, with watercolors, you can see that it's a little shiny here, and I think I've let my paint or my water sit a little too long, so it's dried out. So I'm going to go ahead and add another layer to it. And what's really cool about watercolors too is that you will get different shades of the same color.
Cool.
Yep. And I won't, yep. I'm not going to add water in the back of my my tail because I will go over that later. Right now I'm just doing the front end.
And Julie wanted to know, what if I get water in a place where I don't want it?
Oh my God.
You can use your napkin to dab it lightly. So for example, I almost added too much water to my tail. I'm just going to lightly dab that water off.
Very cool.
So right now you can kind of see where I've added water. There's a shine, and this is going to be the most fun part, I think, for a lot of people is actually adding the paint. For me, I get really excited when I can add watercolors to the paper. It's my favorite part. And I'm not going to hold my paper up quite yet because it will be difficult for me to paint and hold the paper pad up at the same time. So I'm going to do this right here. So again, my paper's a little dry right now, but that's okay. Usually you can see it flow a lot more. So if it's too dry, I can always add more water to it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And you can see that my brush isn't going outside that line. And because I didn't add any water there, the paint is also not traveling outside of the line. So that's another question I think a lot of my students will ask me is how do I keep my paintings? Why does the watercolor stay so closely to the line? And that's why I didn't add water to it. And if you see your paint not flowing as well, you can always add water. That's the magic of watercolors, is that you need water to make it flow. And I'm going to, again, be super careful around painting around my eyeball patch. So I'm slowly going to fill that in. And for smaller areas, you can always use the tip of your paintbrush to add that detail. So I'm adding different pressures to my paintbrush depending on how much surface area I want to cover. And so you can see that it's starting to flow pretty well. And I was talking about earlier is if you've already added water towards your saddle patch, you can almost take your napkin and dab right there to create, some lighter areas.
That's really cool.
I'm gonna do that too.
Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and continue painting my orca whale and make sure that I'm covering all the areas I want to, but I'm going to be very careful around the patch as not to cover it. or the eyeball.
And Kent was just asking, if you don't have black, which colors would you use? And you said at the beginning you can use gray, you can use purple, you can use rainbow colors, whatever you want.
You can, yeah, and that's that's the fun thing about art, is you can use any color you want. I'm trying to find one of my whales that I painted, that my orcas, that's actually I painted in purple. So
And that's such a great sticker.
Thank you, Rob. So this is a purple. I mean, and really, I think the beauty of art is that you could paint any color you want, and as long as it's bringing you joy. I've also had students where they get really frustrated because they get caught up in the colors and it's all about just like testing it out. You know, I have never seen a right whale that is purple. But I decided that I really like the shadow violet purple, and it has almost tints of blue in it. And so I was like, why not? I'm going to paint it that color because I like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And knowing that we have 15 minutes left, I just want to remind people that if you go to Sophia's website, and the link is in the banner, Sophia's got a beautiful store where you can look at these stickers and prints, and maybe even get an original painting. Yes.
And with that too, Rob, I wanted to also donate this piece to the Oceans Initiative. So this piece,
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for all the work that you do to protect our marine wildlife and just nature in general. I really appreciate you bringing science into the equation of policy.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so important. I think that we think, you know, I think especially in these times where it's so funny. I think when we think about conservation, I'm always thinking about, okay, which we shouldn't wait until we're in crisis to actually conserve. Conservation should happen way before.
Absolutely.
So I'm really grateful for all the work that you both do, and I think for everyone watching, it's pretty cool, you know, if you can continue to attend these camps and learn all you can about just orcas and marine life, because I think it's around, is it 99% of the ocean is still unexplored? It's a crazy amount.
Yeah, something like 95%. It's huge.
It's huge, yeah.
But just so everyone hears that, if anyone makes a donation to our nonprofit, go to oceansinitiative.org, and you can see how you can make a tax-deductible donation either in Canada or the US. We'll send you the list. Why don't we keep that open for 3 days?
Okay. Yep.
And then
that sounds great.
Over the weekend, and then on Monday's camp, we can announce the winner of this beautiful original killer whale painting, which I can't wait to see.
Yeah, that sounds really great, Rob. And what I really like is that really, like, even if it's $5 or $10, your name will be put into the drawing. We're not doing it based off of just like the total amount, so anyone can participate in winning this original orca piece.
I can't stress that enough. The financial support has been great, but even just the moral support during these turbulent times, we've been really blown away by the how the feedback, the response. This has been overwhelming, because a lot of the science that we do is pretty isolating, and it's been great to build a community. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
For sure.
A couple of people have asked about, you know, it looks like it's someone's birthday coming up. It's two people.
My birthday.
Yeah.
Oh,
named Charlotte has a son who would like watercolors for his birthday, and Clara's birthday is next Thursday.
Oh my goodness!
And I'm turning 6.
And people would like to know,
what a great age.
Are there any particular watercolors that you recommend?
Yes. So there's a pocket set that I really like. I don't have it. It's upstairs in my room because I was painting last night in my room. It's all, I have a materials list on my website, and I recommend to all my students, it's a Winsor & Newton pocket. watercolor set, and you the quality is great. I highly recommend it. It's lasted me over 5 years already.
Cool.
So that's a really great thing about watercolors too, is that a little goes a long ways.
Cool.
Whether
So
it's in the
absolutely
palette or
not necessary for these classes for anyone to go out and buy anything new.
Yep.
But if you are in the market, we can include that
Right.
or direct people to your recommended list. Thanks very much
Yeah,
for doing
I
that.
have a materials list, and I also have recommendations for a paintbrush. The pocket set that I'm recommending comes with a mini brush. It's this teeny brush that's nice. And what's fun about it is that you can take it traveling wherever you go. And a lot of my friends who go on lots of hikes and who are mountaineers, they use that too. And it's around, I think it's $22. So it's pretty
Cool.
affordable. But there's also another kit I use. Right now I'm using Pelican, and
Oh, cool.
it comes in this little kit. And so I'm the little palette, the paint palette actually comes out.
Cool.
Yeah. But feel free to message me too. I really I think one of my goals in sharing my paintings with the world is really to get people to develop a creative outlet. And it's been super healing for me. And I just never get bored because I think when we look at nature is completely fascinating, and there's always something that you can observe and sketch, and you can learn a lot by just observing and sketching something.
That's Mom.
Love it.
That's Mom.
But happy early birthday, Clara, and who else had a birthday?
Henry.
Henry. Happy birthday, early birthday. That's very
And
exciting.
Erin is reminding me that we have 9 minutes left, and we've got a couple of things that we want to cover at the end.
Yep. Are there other questions, or I'm starting to fill in my tail right now.
Cool. Well, one of the things that Erin wanted, do you want to say it?
Well, sure. I just wanted to point out that I think that in drawing the animals or painting animals is a great way to learn about them.
Yeah.
Great way to learn about their anatomy. And it was one of the ways that, before photography, it was one of the ways we learned about species around the globe and how to classify species and what made them different from one another. So early biologists, it was a tool that they had in their research toolkit, really.
Yeah.
And even today, I mean, this kind of illustration, these types of illustrations are useful, and you can have a career in biological illustration.
That is very true. Yes, thank you for that. That's a great reminder too. It's just what's really fun about illustrating and observing. It's not just it's an art. I would say it's also a science. And what I enjoyed learning so much in my biology classes, and it's just your ability to come up with a hypothesis, and you can observe it. And what's fun about painting is that you can put that observation right to the paper. So I think a lot of times our education system can separate the two, but they're very integrated. And I actually got extra points in my biology class because I would illustrate a lot of my science experiments, and my teachers loved it.
You could put a sand in there. You could just hold it there so she won't notice.
But yeah, I'd love also to see. I would definitely send Rob and Erin your paintings, or send me your paintings. I'd love to see what folks have been created. It always brings me joy to see other people's work as well. So I'm actually just adding some more black actually to my Orca because I want to. It will look good.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm going to
So watercolors also requires a lot of patience. And so it's sometimes I'm working on multiple paintings at the same time. because you have to wait actually for watercolor looks great when you can layer on different colors, but you have to wait for the first layer to dry. And what I did was I created a wash, right? So I added just the water first using my wet on wet technique. And then I'm going to let it dry, and then I will add another color. It seems like we only have 7 more minutes. So what I do too is I'll add, sometimes I'll just leave it as in pencil because I just like the look of pencil, or I'll outline the rest in a black pen. Or if you have a white pencil, you can do that too to keep it completely white. It's really up to you what you want. For an example of something a little different is I decided I wanted a little purple. So I added a purple line there. But this Orca whale is not completely white or black. It's just different shades of purple.
That's so cool. I mean, I wish we could create a marine biology field camp mascot. Like that would make a great souvenir sticker or t-shirt.
I just saw it actually, because Rob, you were telling me about the Pacific white-sided dolphin, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen one. But now that I'm looking at my my whale list and my marine mammals, I see it right here.
Yeah.
So,
Well, once these strong germ days are over, you have an open invitation to come out on our boat anytime.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love
I'd love
that.
to show you that.
That'd be so much fun. What'd you say, Clara?
And the best part about seeing dolphins with mommy and daddy is every time we see a dolphin, we get to eat chocolate.
I see you're associating dolphins with chocolate. That is very
Positive
exciting.
reinforcement.
It's a dolphin
Yeah.
chocolate.
It's a tradition. Yeah.
Oh wow!
It's chocolate with mint inside. And it's the best chocolate.
And it's the prize that goes to the first person to spot the Pacific white-sided dolphins.
That is very exciting.
Do you want to
I
show
can't wait.
Sophia your painting?
Oh yeah.
And
And
this,
this is-
yeah, and
This is my orca that I made.
Let's see.
wow! Ooh, is that
It's
seaweed?
mom-
Wow!
It's mommy as an orca.
Oh my goodness!
I've never
That's
been.
beautiful.
And
Okay.
this is mommy's painting.
Yeah.
This is mommy's painting.
Beautiful. Oh, I love all the seaweed. That is so much fun. Yes.
I had a little
watercolor seaweed.
accident with the water.
We had a happy little accident, as Bob Ross would say.
That's all right.
And
But mommy's going to put a salmon there, so it's like kelp. So
Yeah.
it's like
Ah.
it's eating salmon.
That
And
is
that's
so
our dog
fun.
Molly as an orca. We're making the whole family as orcas.
Orca pod. Yes.
okay, I'll give you back your solo screen
Thanks, Clara.
because I
I
think
love that.
mommy as an orca and our dog as an orca,
I've never been an orca before,
Yeah.
and I think I
the
like
matriarch and the pup.
it.
So you are letting this dry.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, we can post the finished image to Instagram or somewhere so that people know what it looks like. And to recap, you have very generously offered to donate this one as well.
Yes.
And so anyone who wants to make a donation to Oceans Initiative, I put the links in the chat. And they can make either a Canadian or a US tax deductible charitable donation, and then you will choose someone, and we'll announce the winner of this auction on Monday at 11. Is that
Yep. That's
That's
right.
right. cool?
I'm so happy. Thank you all for joining. This was a lot of fun.
I learned a lot.
I learned a lot too.
You have to
Thanks,
make
Rob.
your whale, Rob, after this.
Yeah,
That's your homework assignment.
that is our homework assignment. Everyone in
Here.
and
Hi.
Clara.
We're in our little painting mode.
And to folks who've been asking, yes, we will make this broadcast available on our YouTube channel and
Wherever we can.
wherever we can. I'm not sure about Facebook. It's a shame that Instagram doesn't allow a split screen, but we'll figure it out. And we will put it on our website under the About Us. There's a tab for Marine Biology Field Camp, and we will put a video of it there. And with your permission, we'll also direct people to your equipment list.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people can check out that that great paintbrush.
Yeah, this is so much fun.
And the paper.
It's fun to do it together.
I've been really struck by what a difference a good quality watercolor paper makes in terms of absorbing the water.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something I write
have
about
to get
too
off
on
camera
my
to fill it
materials
with
page.
paper.
But I think for this exercise, it was just really great for us to use any types of material, and that's what I always teach my students too. Number one, it's the ability to just test out and draw something, because even before I added my watercolors to my paper, right? Like I did a sketch, and when I was younger, I didn't have good quality paper.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can get pricey. And so I just used any paper that was lying around the house, printing paper. And so I think the best thing for anyone to do is just almost get outside of mental block of testing and learning. And then once you've gotten out of that mental block of just actually trying, start investing in, better material. But that's something that I've observed in my own students. I think as my students have grown up, they're more they just want to perfect everything. But the best thing is just to test and play.
And I love that you said, even if you don't have watercolors, you can just do this with a pencil or
absolutely
a black pen.
Yes.
Or coffee.
Or coffee.
Parents spill coffee.
Or hot chocolate.
Maybe
Or-
hot chocolate.
You could definitely do that. Yeah, it's experiment, and that's I think a lot of the fun in art and being creative.
Cool.
Cool.
All right.
Let me know if you two ever want to do this again, or if you want to illustrate. This is a lot of fun.
This has been so great, and I think we really should talk later on about whether we should create a souvenir so that kids who've been enjoying or joining these marine biology field camps from the beginning, in mid-March, maybe we could create a souvenir.
Would be fun.
But please check out Sophia's website, the link in the screen. And for those of you who are interested in the marine biology field camp, please go to our website, sign up for the newsletter, or follow us on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever your favorite social media platform is. And we will see you Monday at 11 when Erin is going to talk about her long-running, non-invasive study on Pacific white-sided dolphins, which are pretty cool.
Right there.
Yeah, there they are.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Cool. Well, I know you're going to get a lot of emails. But I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you both.
For those of you who are on Instagram, please follow Sophia on Instagram. What is your tag, your handle?
It's quite long. It's follow Sophia Trinh.
Okay.
I really love philosophy, and it's not the best marketing name, but I just can't. I don't want to change it.
I don't blame you.
I love
It means my parents named me Sophia, which means love of wisdom. So I think for art for me is always an act of love, and I just always kept it. So
I love that.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show that on the screen so that people can see it. Instagram.com Sophia Trinh. And please follow Sophia on Instagram for those of you who are on Instagram, because her paintings are beautiful, and occasionally she does short videos like this.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm always happy to answer questions too. I get emails. I get a lot of questions about just different techniques. So feel free. I always tell my students too that the class doesn't end here. The class is continued throughout our lives, and I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have.
Okay. Thank you so much for doing
thank
this.
you. You're so
To everyone
welcome.
watching, we'd love to see your kids' drawings, paintings.
Yes.
Email them
Yes.
to team@oceansinitiative.org. And that way we know that we have your parents' permission to share them.
Yes.
And we would love to show a few of those next week.
Yes, please.
All right.
Thank
you so much, Sophia.
All right,
This was
thank
so
you.
fun.
Have a
Can
great
you say
rest
goodbye,
of your day.
Clara?
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Claire. Happy early birthday.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Can't wait to see the finished painting.
Bye.